Hello, language enthusiasts! Welcome to Tales and Talks, climbing the language ladder, where we help you navigate the ups and downs of English communication. I'm Sophia.
And I'm Adrian. We're excited to have you join us for another episode of Linguistic Adventures. Last week, we discussed how to share opinions and disagree politely in English, something that many of you found really helpful based on your comments.
Oh, absolutely. It's such an important skill. And today, we're tackling another essential aspect of everyday communication: how to give and receive compliments naturally in English.
Compliments might seem simple on the surface, but they're actually little social gifts that can make someone's day or strengthen a relationship. And yet, many language learners find them tricky to navigate.
That's so true, Adrian. I've had many students tell me they feel awkward either giving compliments because they're worried about sounding insincere or receiving them because they don't know how to respond appropriately.
Exactly. And cultural differences can make this even more challenging. What's considered a nice compliment in one culture might seem too forward or even inappropriate in another.
So today, we'll break down the art of complimenting in English, from crafting sincere praise to accepting kind words gracefully. Trust me, this is one skill that will serve you well in personal relationships, professional settings, and everyday interactions.
Get ready to boost your confidence and social connections with the power of well-delivered compliments. Let's dive in.
So let's start by talking about why compliments actually matter so much in English-speaking cultures. They're more than just nice words. They're powerful tools for connection.
Absolutely. At their core, compliments are like little bridges we build between people. When you give someone a genuine compliment, you're essentially saying, "I see you, I notice something positive about you, and I value that."
That's such a good way to put it. And research has actually shown that receiving a sincere compliment can trigger the same parts of our brain that light up when we receive money or other rewards.
Really? So I could either give you $5 or tell you how brilliant your podcast ideas are and your brain might react similarly?
Well, maybe not exactly the same, but there is a definite neurological reward. And that's why compliments are so effective at boosting confidence and creating positive feelings in relationships.
I think what many English learners don't realize is how compliments function as social lubricants in English-speaking cultures. They help ease interactions, especially in new relationships or slightly awkward situations.
That's so true. In many English-speaking countries, particularly in North America, compliments are exchanged quite freely compared to some other cultures. They help create a positive atmosphere and open the door to deeper conversation.
And mastering this skill really can enhance your overall communication. Think about it. Being able to naturally compliment a colleague on their presentation might lead to a meaningful professional relationship.
Or knowing how to graciously accept a compliment from a neighbor about your garden could be the start of a friendship. These small moments add up.
I find it interesting that compliments also serve different functions depending on the context. Sometimes they're conversation starters, sometimes they're ways to show appreciation, and sometimes they're tools to put others at ease.
And that versatility is exactly why it's worth taking time to understand how compliments work in English. When you master this skill, you're not just learning phrases, you're learning cultural fluency. Now that we understand why compliments are important, let's talk about how to give them naturally, because there's definitely an art to it.
There really is. I think the number one rule for giving compliments in English is to be specific and sincere. Generic compliments like "good job" or "nice work" can sometimes feel a bit empty.
Exactly. Compare "good job on your presentation" with "I loved how you used those real-life examples in your presentation. They really helped me understand the concept."
The second one feels so much more genuine because it shows you were actually paying attention. You're complimenting something specific that required effort.
And that brings us to another important point. Try to compliment effort rather than just results or natural attributes when possible.
Right, so instead of just saying, "You're so smart," you might say, "I was impressed by how thoroughly you researched that topic," or "The way you solved that problem was really creative."
This approach is especially helpful because it acknowledges the person's actions and choices rather than just innate qualities. It recognizes their agency.
I think another key aspect of giving natural compliments is timing. A well-timed compliment that fits the context will always feel more genuine than something that seems random.
Good point. And we should talk about cultural sensitivity too. The appropriateness of compliments can vary greatly across cultures and contexts.
Absolutely. In some professional settings or cultures, complimenting appearance might not be appropriate, while in others, it's perfectly normal.
For instance, in many English-speaking workplaces, it's better to focus on someone's work, ideas, or skills rather than their physical appearance.
And the level of enthusiasm might need adjusting too. Americans often use quite enthusiastic language and compliments. That was amazing. While in some other English-speaking countries, the tone might be more measured.
It's also worth noting that in English, we often use compliments as conversation openers, like, "That's a beautiful scarf, where did you get it?" This creates a natural flow into further discussion.
I found that one way to make compliments feel more natural is to connect them to a question or follow-up comment, just like your example.
And don't forget to match your body language and tone to your words. A compliment delivered with a warm smile and eye contact will always land better than one muttered while looking at your phone.
So true. The delivery really matters. And remember, if you don't mean it, don't say it. People are surprisingly good at detecting insincerity.
Now, let's get into some really useful English phrases for giving compliments. Having these expressions ready to use can make complimenting others feel much more natural.
Absolutely. One of my favorite phrases to start with is, "I love the way you." This works for so many situations.
It really does. For example, "I love the way you explained that concept," or "I love the way you handled that difficult customer." It's versatile and sounds very natural.
Another great one is, "You have a real talent for." This is perfect when you notice someone has a particular skill or ability that stands out.
Like, "You have a real talent for making everyone feel included in meetings," or "You have a real talent for simplifying complex topics." It acknowledges someone's unique strengths.
I also find myself using, "That's such a smart idea," a lot. It's a great way to compliment someone's thinking process or creativity.
And don't forget, "You handled that really well." I use this one when I want to acknowledge how someone managed a situation, especially a challenging one.
For more personal compliments, phrases like, "You always know how to," can work nicely. "You always know how to brighten up a room," or "You always know how to find solutions when we're stuck."
Here's another useful one. "I'm impressed by..." This works well in professional settings. "I'm impressed by your attention to detail," or "I'm impressed by how quickly you learned that new system."
And if you want to compliment someone's personal qualities, you might say, "You're so good at," for instance, "You're so good at staying calm under pressure."
Let's talk about when to use these different phrases. Adrian, when would you use "I really appreciate how you" versus "I'm amazed at how you..." Oh,
That's a good question. I'd use, "I really appreciate how you," when I want to acknowledge something helpful or thoughtful. It's a bit more measured and suitable for everyday situations.
and "I'm amazed at how you..."
That one conveys more surprise or stronger admiration. I'd save it for truly exceptional achievements or qualities. Using it too often might make it lose its impact.
That's a great point about frequency. Another phrase that works well for personal style or creative work is "I'm a fan of your..." Like, "I'm a fan of your writing style," or "I'm a fan of your approach to problem solving."
And for acknowledging growth or improvement, you might say something like, "You've really improved at," or "I've noticed how much better you've gotten at."
These are all great for specific situations, but sometimes a simple "that was fantastic" or "brilliant work" can be just what's needed, especially when followed by a specific reason why.
Right. And remember, listeners, the tone you use matters just as much as the words. A warmly delivered simple compliment can mean more than an elaborate one that sounds rehearsed.
Absolutely. The key is to have these phrases in your language toolkit so they come naturally when the moment is right.
Now that we've talked about giving compliments, let's switch gears and discuss something many people struggle with: receiving compliments graciously.
Oh, this is such an important topic. I've noticed that many English learners, and even native speakers, have trouble accepting compliments. They often downplay them or reject them entirely.
That's right. Have you ever complimented someone and they responded with something like, "Oh, this old thing?" or "No, I'm actually terrible at this"?
All the time. It's almost like a reflex for many people. But in English-speaking cultures, dismissing compliments can actually come across as dismissing the person giving them.
Exactly. When someone pays you a compliment and you reject it, you're essentially telling them their opinion is wrong. Not a great way to build connections.
So what should our listeners do instead? Well, the simplest approach is to just say thank you. That's it. It acknowledges the compliment and shows appreciation.
But if you want to go a step further, you can say something like, "Thank you. That means a lot. This adds warmth and shows that you value their words.
Another natural response is, I really appreciate that. It's simple, sincere, and works in almost any situation.
For compliments about something you've worked hard on, you might say, "Thanks, I've been working on it." This acknowledges both the compliment and your effort.
I like that one because it allows for a brief continuation of the conversation if appropriate. You could follow up with something like, it took me several weeks to get it right.
Another approach is to acknowledge the specific thing they complimented. If someone says, "Your presentation was excellent," you might respond with, "Thank you. I'm glad the examples resonated with you."
What about in professional settings? Any specific advice there?
In professional contexts, it's perfectly fine to acknowledge the compliment and then share credit if others were involved. "Thank you. I had a great team helping me with the research."
That's a good point. And what would you say is the biggest mistake people make when receiving compliments?
Besides outright rejection, I'd say it's the self-deprecating response. Things like, "Oh, anyone could have done it," or "It was nothing, really." These responses minimize both your accomplishment and the other person's judgment.
It's interesting how receiving compliments well is actually a social skill that benefits both parties. The giver feels heard and validated, and the receiver gets to fully accept the positive feedback.
And there's a psychological benefit too. When we learn to genuinely accept compliments, we internalize positive messages about ourselves, which builds confidence over time.
That's such an important point, Adrian. Accepting compliments isn't about being arrogant. It's about acknowledging your strengths and allowing others to celebrate them with you. Let's move on to something equally important: compliment etiquette and the common mistakes people make when giving compliments.
Yes, because we've all been in situations where someone meant to give a compliment, but it didn't quite land the way they intended.
One of the biggest pitfalls is insincerity. People can detect when a compliment isn't genuine from a mile away.
Absolutely. Empty praise, like saying, "Your English is amazing," to someone who just introduced themselves with hello, can feel patronizing rather than encouraging.
And then there's the opposite problem: overdoing it. Excessive compliments, especially one after another, can make people uncomfortable and question your motives.
I've seen this happen at networking events. Someone will shower a potential client with praise, and it just comes across as, well, desperate.
Exactly. A good rule of thumb is that one sincere, specific compliment is worth more than 10 generic ones.
Another mistake to avoid is making overly personal compliments, especially with people you don't know well.
Right. Commenting on someone's physical appearance can be particularly tricky in professional settings. "I like your presentation style" is usually safer than "those pants look great on you."
Cultural context matters too. What's appropriate in one culture might be uncomfortable in another.
That's a perfect segue to another crucial aspect: how your tone and body language affect your compliments.
Oh, this is so important. You can say the right words, but if your tone sounds sarcastic or your body language appears closed off, your compliment will fall flat.
Or worse, it might be interpreted as an insult. Imagine saying "nice job on that project" while rolling your eyes.
Exactly. When giving a compliment, make eye contact, smile naturally, and use a warm, enthusiastic tone, but not overly enthusiastic to the point it seems fake.
And timing matters too. Interrupting an important discussion to compliment someone's earrings might seem inappropriate or like you weren't paying attention to the conversation.
Another mistake is the backhanded compliment. Those that contain criticism disguised as praise. "You're so articulate for a non-native speaker," or "You look great. You must have lost weight."
Those are perfect examples of compliments that actually make people feel worse, not better.
The key is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Ask yourself, how would I feel receiving this compliment in this context?
That's excellent advice, Adrian. Being mindful of how your words might be received is really what compliment etiquette is all about. Speaking of cultural context, let's dive deeper into how compliments work across different cultures. This is fascinating because what's considered appropriate or appreciated varies so much around the world.
Absolutely. In English-speaking countries like the US, UK, or Australia, compliments are usually given and received quite freely. There's an expectation that you'll accept a compliment with a simple "thank you."
But that's not universal at all. In many East Asian cultures like Japan or China, there's a stronger tradition of modesty. When complimented, people often deflect praise or even deny it.
Right. If you compliment someone's cooking in Japan, they might say something like, "No, it's nothing special," or I still have much to improve, even if they're a professional chef.
This can create awkward situations for language learners. An American might think a Japanese person is being insincere by deflecting compliments, while a Japanese person might find Americans too prideful for accepting praise directly.
I experienced this firsthand when I complimented a Korean colleague on her presentation. She kept saying, "No, it wasn't good," and I initially thought she was fishing for more compliments. Later, I realized this was just her cultural way of showing modesty.
In some Middle Eastern cultures, compliments about possessions might actually create an unexpected obligation. If you admire someone's watch too enthusiastically, they might feel culturally obligated to give it to you.
That's why it's so important to understand these differences. In Russia and some Eastern European countries, excessive compliments or smiling too much while giving them might seem insincere or suspicious.
And in many Nordic countries, compliments are given more sparingly, but when they are given, they tend to be deeply meaningful and specific.
So how do we navigate these differences as English speakers or English learners?
First, observe the patterns in your specific context. If you're in a multicultural workplace in London, the norms might be different than if you're visiting someone's home in rural India.
Second, adjust your expectations. If someone from a culture that values modesty deflects your compliment, don't take it personally or think they're being ungrateful.
And third, when in doubt, moderate your approach. A sincere, specific compliment delivered in a calm manner rarely offends across cultures.
I think the key is remembering that behind all these cultural differences is the universal human appreciation for recognition. We just express and receive it differently.
Beautifully put. Understanding these cultural nuances doesn't just improve your compliment skills, it shows respect and builds deeper cross-cultural connections. Now that we've explored cultural perspectives, let's put everything we've learned into practice with some role-play scenarios.
Great idea. Let's demonstrate effective compliment exchanges in different situations so our listeners can see how these principles work in real conversations.
We'll start with a workplace scenario. I'll be a colleague complimenting Adrian on a presentation he just gave.
And I'll show how to receive it graciously without being awkward.
All right, here we go. Adrian, I just wanted to say that your presentation to the client was really impressive. The way you handled those tough questions showed how deeply you understand the project.
Thank you, Sophia. That means a lot coming from you. I actually spent quite a bit of time preparing for those questions.
Did you notice what made that exchange work? I gave a specific compliment about a particular skill, handling tough questions, rather than just saying, "Good job."
And I accepted it directly with a thank you, acknowledged the source of the compliment, and added a bit about my effort without downplaying the praise.
Let's try another scenario at a social gathering. Adrian, you'll compliment me this time.
Sophia, I've been meaning to tell you that you have such a gift for making people feel welcome. I noticed how you introduced that new person to everyone and found common interests to talk about.
Thanks, Adrian. I've been in that uncomfortable position before, so I try to help others feel included.
In this example, I focused on a personal quality, making others feel welcome, and supported it with a specific observation.
And I accepted the compliment while briefly sharing why it matters to me, which creates a deeper connection in the conversation.
Let's do one more between friends.
I love that jacket on you, Adrian. The color really brings out your eyes. Is it new?
Thank you. I just got it last week. I wasn't sure about the color at first, but you've made me feel confident about my choice.
This shows how a simple compliment about appearance can be done respectfully. I was specific about what I liked and asked a follow-up question to continue the conversation.
And notice I didn't say, "Oh, this old thing?" or "It was on sale," which would have undermined your compliment. Instead, I shared a little vulnerability that made the exchange more authentic.
For our listeners, the key takeaways from these role plays are: be specific, be sincere, and when receiving compliments, accept them graciously without deflecting.
And remember that compliments can be about achievements, personal qualities, efforts, or possessions. You have many opportunities to brighten someone's day. Now, listeners, we have a challenge for you. We want you to take everything you've learned today and put it into practice.
That's right. Your challenge this week is to give at least 3 sincere compliments to different people in your life, and really pay attention to how you receive compliments as well.
Try using some of the specific phrases we discussed today. Remember phrases like, "I really admire how you," or "You have such a talent for," can make your compliments more meaningful.
And when someone compliments you, resist the urge to deflect. Practice saying, "Thank you, I appreciate that," instead of, "Oh, it was nothing."
We'd love to hear how it goes. Share your compliment experiences with us on our social media or send us a message through our website.
You might be surprised at how these small, positive interactions can transform your relationships and even improve your confidence in speaking English.
As we wrap up today's episode, let's quickly review what we've covered. We talked about why compliments matter in English-speaking cultures,
How to give specific and sincere compliments rather than generic praise.
useful phrases you can add to your English vocabulary for giving effective compliments,
The art of graciously receiving compliments without downplaying yourself.
common mistakes to avoid, and cultural differences to be aware of.
And of course, our fun role plays to see these principles in action.
Next week, we're going to be talking about something equally important for English learners: how to politely interrupt conversations and join ongoing discussions.
That's going to be such a practical topic. Speaking of which, Adrian, I have to say I really enjoyed our compliment role plays today. You brought so much energy to them.
Thank you, Sophia. Coming from someone with your teaching experience, that means a lot.
See, listeners, we practice what we preach.
Until next week, keep climbing that language ladder.
This has been Tales and Talks with Sophia and Adrian. Thanks for listening, and remember, a well-placed compliment can open many doors.